Well, hey Crosskart fans, check this out. So this is the 6-inch stretch kit that we've been building in here. We've got a rear end that I used 5/8 plates on for a super strong homebrew rear end. And this one we're setting up a little differently. So we're going to walk you through exactly the mindsets, the preparations, the ideas going into this build. So first off, you'll see that the rear tabs are sitting a little higher. I usually put mine down low so that it's at the same plane as the bottom of the chassis. This is not, and the reason for that is maximum travel. So if you center the output of your drive shaft between your upper and lower A-arm mounting bolts, that's going to give you, I don't want to go as far as unlimited travel, but a ton of travel. And how the rear A-arms are set up and the drive shafts and the Homebrew, how there's that forward angle on the drive shafts, that reduces your plunge. So this whole setup is going to lead to a crazy amount of travel. Now there's things that come with that. Moving this up makes your A-arm, upper A-arm just a hair too long, but I've compensated for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount the lower one, and then we're going to look at trimming the upper one to make all this line up well. All of this is modular for you guys to use specifically for this reason, for what you want to do with it. It's a VF, right? Speaking of what you want to do with it, what we have sitting over there is a Raptor 700 engine. So it's going to be a 6-inch stretch, and it's going to have two modes, a Crosskart mode, of course, because it's a Crosskart, but also a Baja mode, which is going to be tons of travel for those whoops, a good amount of clearance to get over anything that's out in the desert, and obviously Baja tires of some sort, right? We'll see that when we get there. So today we're going to get this rear end absolutely perfect for maximum travel. Let's get rolling on this. I'm so pumped for this. All right, so starting out, it's basic. You just measure your tabs. The distance between these bolts is based off of the distance from the hub, the bolts from the hub. So this is just matched up, and you can go narrower, but you don't want to go wider. Narrower will increase camber gain. Wider or taller will decrease camber gain or give you negative camber gain, which you don't want, right? So this is about 5 inches. These are about 4 inches, or 6 and 5, whatever. But the important thing is that they are centered on this shaft, as I was saying earlier. So axles have plunge. So you can see this plunge going in and out. That's going to do that as your suspension is flexing. So for your lower side of your travel or your ride height or your static, you want this close to the end of your travel for your axle, the end of your plunge. So we've got about 1 inch remaining, and we've pre-cut some tabs. We took that measurement based off of that plunge and this lower A-arm mount, and we have about 1/4 inch of clearance under here. So we get those mounted up. You'll see the spacing there is very nice. And then from here, all we have to do is get our camber set at 0 on our tire and then work our upper A-arms. Right now, you can see that they are too long because we have camber going out. So I made these with about 2.5 inches that you can trim off to make your A-arms right. So once we get the bottom ones mounted, we'll measure out here probably about 1 inch, cut that off, re-weld this, and our upper A-arms will be perfect for this setup. Now, the reason the A-arms are too long for this particular application is because this is sitting higher. This being a V out, the further you go up, the shorter your upper A-arm needs to be. All right, so the whole rear end setup, the A-arms are in the plans for the chassis and available with the kits if you get a kit. This whole basic setup, plus the Homebrew rear end, is on the channel. I'm not gonna go too in depth on the building of all this stuff because there's other videos covering it. This video is all about just getting that sweet maximum suspension travel. So if you want to know more about all of this, building the frame, the hubs, the Homebrew rear end, basic suspension setup, building the A-arms, everything, check out the channel. There's a video pretty much for every topic. All right, so I've got my bolt, I've got my tab, and I've got a washer for powder coat spacing. So we just slide that on there. Stick tab on. Put our other tab on the other side. And there we go. Now we can kind of change the position of this and watch the plunge of our axle. And I have this on a jack just to help with that. Check that out. That'll help us just get it lined in right where we want it. That actually looks really great. All right, so before I tack this, I'll show you this. I have my tabs running kind of just in line with the A-arm itself. I don't know if that gives the most strength or what, but it will give you the most wheel clearance. If you drop this below, you might run into a smaller wheel, and if you bring it up too high, you're going to interfere with this boot. So just in line is kind of my ideal place. And before I attack this, I'm going to take my angle finder, I'm going to put it on my hub, and I'm going to level the hub with the frame or with the A-arms, or split the difference, however that works. All right, so this is why we're trying to maximize the rear suspension travel. We have aftermarket front ATV arms, and we tested the ball joints to see what the max travel of those arms are, and this is what we came up with. Across from the center of the wheel is 20 inches. So you can see that front end has 20 inches of available travel before you max out those ball joints. So we're basically just trying to match that on the back. So a 650-pound cart with 20 inches of travel and a Raptor 700 engine, this thing's gonna be nuts. All right, so we've got the bottom tacked in. Now we have the top, and you can see it's too long. Now you could just make tabs and have this offset, and everything's gonna work the same. But for aesthetics, for wheel fitment, if you're into that, or just to, you know, have it match, I'm just gonna come in here with a ruler, and I've got 1 inch, and I want a little bit of gap between there. So a 1/4 inch of gap would put this about a 1/2 inch. So we need to take about a 1/2 inch off of this side of the A-arm to shorten it up to make that all great. Do your own measurements. Don't rely on mine because these are all built differently. This is why I tack everything. You never know if you want to change something. All right, so with the shortened A-arm in place, the typical order of operations would be to measure this just like we did the bottom ones to see that gap we need. But we're just gonna check the ones from the other side that we made to see if our tabs are the same. Get our washer for powder coat spacing. Get that on there and we'll see what we got. And that looks pretty doggone good. Now, if this doesn't come out and there's like an 1/8 inch gap or even a 1/2 inch gap, don't forget you have adjustment up here with your heims. Now, the heims are generally used for alignment, but obviously they can be used in the fabrication process too. Our wheel is set at 0 camber. We can adjust camber obviously with these, and we can adjust overall plunge. So if we're on the ragged edge of this and we're getting some binding, we can shorten all of these and pull the whole wheel in. This is such a great setup. that's sweet. Broke my tabs. All right, so the rear end is complete. Now, we ended up having to run in the Heim joints. It was 5 turns in because our geometry was actually so perfect that we were actually plunging the opposite way because of the scrub angle, which is actually super cool because you can go in, but it's hard to come out. You see what I'm saying? If we ran out of turns, we could have trimmed these. We could have trimmed these more. Like, we had options. But how it's set now, this axle is in about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch. And let's see what that does for travel. Smooth as can be, 20 inches of driven, non-bound up travel. That is absolutely cool. So now it's just wash, rinse, repeat for the other side. Now remember, everything's not going to be perfectly symmetrical, so you can't do, well, put it this way. Do everything you did for this side, but leave some room for adjustment with your Heims, because it may not be the exact same. It may be an 1/8 off, something like that. But if you do one side, you can definitely do the other side. All right, so 20 inches, and I know what you guys are saying. The tire's above the chassis. You can't use all that suspension, blah, 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 blah. So this is just to show the capabilities. This is to show what you can do with this if you want to. You can get 20 inches out of a VF1 and Homebrew setup. I was curious myself to see how much I could get, and I'm so glad we did this. Am I going to use all this personally? Maybe, maybe not. I'll try to use a lot of it. And just point blank, the way to use all of it is to run a bigger tire. So we measured the gap between the bottom of the frame and the bottom of the tire, and it was roughly 5-6 inches. On here now is a 23-inch tire to get 5 more inches of clearance. That's going to be a 33-inch tire. A 33-inch tire on here would be pretty BA, in my opinion. This is a 32-inch tire. So with this tire in its place, you're going to get, I don't know, 18 inches of travel if you want it. That is a ton of travel on one of these machines. Now, the second thing you'll notice is that to put a shock here, it would be hard to get all that travel with a standard ATV shock. Well, yeah. If you want 20 inches of travel, you're going to have to invest in some specialized shocks. This is just showing you what is possible, right? So we could run some cantilever suspension, right? Have some of that going on, have a line coming up here. Put the bell crank so that it doubles the stroke, twice the stiffness of the spring. There's options if you want to make something like this work, depending on where you're running it. Now, it is a VF frame, variable frame technology, right? Everything I've been designing is to just open it up to whatever you think is perfect. And this is just one of those things. A lot of you guys are asking about long travel suspensions and long travel setups, riding the desert, the dunes, Baja kind of stuff. I get it, man. You could send a 20-inch travel machine off of the biggest jump in the world. It'd be crazy. Now, if you're going to do that, you'd have to set it up to be able to jump well, maybe add some weight into the back, or, you know, fine-tune the suspension so that it does sail well, maybe some aero on it, and just hit the snot out of those dunes. It'd be so fun. So This is the video that just shows you what you can do with this if you want, right? Think outside the box. Think about where you want to use it. You know, the extremes. Everybody loves the extremes. The boost engines, the turbo stuff. People want to put car engines in these. Just the extreme. So this is the extreme of the suspension. Anyways, I hope you guys love it. To you guys that are building them and sending me the good vibes and thank yous for your builds and how they're going, thank you so much, man. That drives me on to keep doing this stuff for you guys, and I love it. It's so fun. I do this to see your builds. Obviously, I love tinkering in the garage, but all the extra stuff I do, like the filming and editing and explanation and instructional stuff, is because I love seeing your builds, right? You guys motivate me and keep me going on. So keep it up. Keep this community growing. I can't wait to see where it goes. So until next time, enjoy the build.